Good evening, folks. Triple Crown here, coming to you from Vancouver, British Columbia. This is a Friday night Allies Round 7 summary YouTube Wars against HuntLikeDavid. I'm in a good mood. I mean, who doesn't love playing Global War 1939 on a Friday night? So much happening. I'm so thrilled how this game is playing out. Cool stuff happening all over the map. Battles everywhere, standoffs everywhere. Let's get into North Africa first. So the British did spend, so let's just first say Britain spent in Africa this turn, and we'll get to reasons why in a minute. So they did their normal build of their military bases here in Rhodesia, moving units up from South Africa, also built some units in the Middle East, and reinforcing now towards the Caucasus from Baku. And the British Navy and Air Force has moved. Everything moved over here. They captured Sicily and they recaptured Tripoli. So the Italians did a counterattack last turn with some light tanks, and the British came in and they landed their Air Force in Malta, built a radar tower there so they can scramble with 4 aircraft at +1 on defense and protect their Navy. And why they wanted to do that, well, it was now or never in regards to establishing themselves sort of in the center of the Med, where if the Spanish become activated by the Italians and the Germans, that this Navy here can, duke it out with the Spanish Navy, which is pretty sizable. They've got a battleship, a cruiser, a destroyer, a submarine, and a transport there. So lots happening there. The Americans down here took out the Argentine Navy. They preemptively sank it. It was a destroyer and a transport, but they did suffer a 1 point of damage on their coastal battleship. Over here, the KMT have been a big standoff here happening between Burma and Siam, but the KMT are just putting so much pressure on the Japanese. They just killed another 3 infantry here in Kwangsi last turn. They control all of their original territories except for 1. And the Japanese do not have any units left between them and Hong Kong. And the Americans, we'll get into what happened, but Japan only has 2 transports left on the map. At least that's what I'm aware of, unless my map isn't correct, which sometimes does happen. But the British and the KMT, they have, I don't even know, more than the Japanese are going to attack with. And the KMT now is starting to head towards Hong Kong, which is a victory city. So that is huge. What's Japan going to do with their 2 naval transports? Are they going to, what are they going to do? They don't have a lot of options. They do have a military base here in Manila, of the Philippines. So what are they going to do? They have to take out this Kwangsi force here because they do not want the KMT getting in that easily. So we expect a huge battle there. The CCP has given Japan the middle finger up here, and they are headed towards Shanghai. So they are 1 territory away from Shanghai, which is also a victory city. But there is a massive stack of Japanese just sitting there, and they can easily start to head south and take them out. Which that's what probably is going to happen. I don't think Japan is going to allow the KMT to be sitting on the doorstep of Shanghai at a minor that easily. So the Russians decided to back out. They were playing ping pong in northern Manchuria. They did capture Vladivostok. They liberated Vladivostok from the Japanese last turn. They don't have many regular infantry left, and that is because they're sending them all to sort of thwart off the Germans. But we'll get into that battle in a second. Over down here in the South Pacific, the Anzac are doing very well. They sank a destroyer here off the coast of Java, and they are not getting convoy down here anymore in the Indian Ocean, which is huge. And they are making 25 now on the income tracker, and they've got a small navy here out of range of the Japanese Navy, and they built a couple transports and an escort carrier next turn, so we can get some more fighters going. They've got a tank here some Z force and an artillery, but they only have one naval transport that can, do anything next turn. The Japanese, very smartly, it was their choice. They could have defended Tokyo either by building a ton of ground units in Tokyo or just moving their navy up just east of Tokyo. And they built a bunch of destroyers. I think they now have like 23 or 24 destroyers. Those black chips there represent 5 destroyers each, and I don't even have that many Japanese destroyers. So good job reinforcing the Navy. HuntLikeDavid, the Americans, were going to get wiped out next turn, so they retreated back to Hawaii with their Navy, which is a little bit smaller. They flew their naval fighters and their battleship they built last turn to Hawaii, and they also built 8 submarines and 1 destroyer back home. So that is a by the time the Japanese want to venture out, if they go take Midway next turn or venture out, the Americans now probably navies are, I'm going to say, even. Americans are probably weaker on defense because they have a lot of submarines, and the Japanese are stronger on defense, but I would say America is stronger on offense. Japan did have a couple naval transports sitting here with no scramble, and the American bomber from Midway came and sank those and landed up here in Russian soil. The first Allied plane or unit on Russian soil in this game. The Japanese were worried about their factory here in Peking. They built a fortification there, but the Russians and the CCP are happy, very happy, keeping the Japanese occupied. The Russians, which liberated their capital of Moscow last turn, their capital has now been moved to Novosibirsk, in case anybody's wondering, and the Germans came in and they survived. They lost all their regular infantry, but they still have all of their fast movers. So Russia came and surrounded Moscow from the east and has prepared a slow retreat away from their city. They did build 10 units. They're making $30 still. Amazing. And they built another 10 units next turn to probably try and thwart the Germans a little bit. And Germany built another naval transport, so they now have 14. They did what used to be called the double Scotch. So they went into Liverpool, which is a territory just north of London, and they reloaded a bunch of more ground units purchased. And just to talk about how this looks, so currently next turn, the Germans can attack London with 47 units, and the British and the Americans and the Canadians are defending with 56. But what happens when the Germans do an amphibious attack or a ground attack on any of the UK homeland territory is it automatically activates Erie. So there's a strict neutral, there's 1 unit there, so that becomes British. And on the next British turn, it allows the UK to produce infantry at the cost of 2 IPP and 15 units at their factory in London. So that is huge. So the British, spawned infantry all over the map at the cost of 2. So they absolutely love that. And they now have 56 units, which also is an advantage. They have so many infantry now defending London. They have, I believe, over 40 infantry, and defending the homeland, they defend at a 5. So they're +1 on defense, and 10 of them are going to be at a fort. And there's a couple, 6 Marines and 1 commando there, so they also defend at a +1 on the first round of combat from an amphibious attack, I believe. So that is, and the the German Navy, there's 3 destroyers, a couple subs there, and a couple coastal battleships. So the Russians are blocking 1 destroyer here in case the Germans wanted to come through with their small navy and with their air force and take a poke at London. Both West Germany and London both have radar towers, so it allows an extra fighter to scramble. So it is going to be very interesting now what happens. Western Europe now is very lightly defended, so Do the Allies do a, eventually, if they have the upper hand, do they do a landing here in Bordeaux and force the Germans to then fight for Paris? Just to delay for a turn. Back here, Canada, there is another 4 units ready to jump on a transport and go to London next turn. The Americans have a couple transports that are headed over from Rio de Oro, and they are ready to drop off another 10 units in London next turn. So it's going to be a game of attrition here. But the Germans do have a lot of heavy hitters. They've got a lot of their tanks, a lot of their Mark IVs, Mark Vs, and then they're building Tiger tanks now, and they've got their veteran fighters and a heavy bomber. But Germany's gonna, basically now have to produce as many units as they can in Western Germany, which is 10 per turn, and 3 at Stettin, to be able to sort of gain the upper hand in battle of attrition. They can build 3 units per turn at the reduced major to now a minor in Liverpool. So we'll see how that plays out. I don't know how it's going to play out. I'm excited to see. Italy over here still doesn't have any navy. They are probably going to liberate Spain next turn, and they are still building heavy hitters here in Tobruk. So the British have to be careful here. They're quite far away, so if Italy wants to take a poke at their navy, they can, but it'll probably be mutual destruction of aircraft, ships, and planes on both sides, so that'll be interesting. So we'll see what happens. Long summary, folks, but there's a lot about to happen. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for round 8.